Events unfold in December 1918. Tom Sherborne, who has returned from the war, dreams of living on Janus Island and working as a lighthouse keeper. Normally bachelors are not sent there because the place is remote, but since it is a temporary job for Tom, his candidacy was approved. Tom took the train to his destination. He arrived at the address and met with his immediate employers, Mr. Gracemark and Ralph Edicott. When Mr. Gracemark's daughter Isabel came, Tom fell in love at first sight. Tom was invited to stay for dinner. He and Isabel kept their eyes on each other. Tom assured that he could do the job, as he longed to be alone after the war, away from the hustle and bustle. Tom was taken to the island by Ralph and Bluey. He was surrounded by endless waters, not a soul here. Thus began Tom's daily life of utter loneliness. He can't recover from the war, constantly brooding. So 3 months passed. One day the employers visited him and informed him that the previous lighthouse keeper, who was to return to his duties in 6 months, had jumped off a cliff. So Tom was offered a contract for several years to come. One day when Tom was back in town for a while, he came to visit the Gracemark family. Later he and Isabel went on a picnic to get to know each other better. She told that she lost both of her brothers in the war. Tom was at the front for almost 4 years. His mother is gone, and he and his father are not close. Tom found it easier to live with the idea that no one would miss him. Isabel asks Tom to take her with him to Janus. Since according to the rules only the caretaker's wife is allowed there, Isabel suggests that Tom marry her. Of course he took it as a joke. Tom returned to the island and soon wrote Isabel a letter, just as he had promised. They realized that they were drawn to each other. Soon Isabel received a parcel and another letter from him, in which he confessed that thanks to her for the first time in a long time his faith in life had returned to him. Isabel wrote back and sent Tom a picture of herself. Their correspondence continued, and soon Tom gathered his courage and asked the girl to marry him. Without thinking, she packed her bags to go to the island. The couple were married. William Gracemark gave a toast in honor of his beloved daughter and her husband. The wedding was celebrated with the closest. Isabel really liked the island. Now she and Tom will live here alone. The couple spent all the time together. Gradually, Isabel and Tom fell more and more in love with each other. They started their own household. With the wife by his side, Tom found the peace of mind he had sorely lacked. Soon Isabel became pregnant. The couple were over the moon. A storm has begun.
Storm looks like it's not kidding around.
Tom went to the lighthouse, and Isabel stayed in the house. At some point she felt sick and realized she had gone into premature labor. She lost the baby. Not knowing what to do, Isabel went to the lighthouse to her husband right in the storm. The door was locked, and Tom could not hear his wife's cries because of the wind. In the morning, after extinguishing the lighthouse, he found her lying by the door and carried her in his arms into the house. The spouses had a funeral. Tom wants to call a doctor, but Isabel thinks there is no point, the baby is gone anyway. Tom promises the wife that everything will be all right. Seeing strangers on the island, Isabel thought the husband had called a doctor after all and became angry with him. She could not stop grieving for her baby. It turned out that Tom had wanted to surprise her and had called a handyman to fix the piano. Isabel used to be into music, and Tom thought it would help her get out of her depression. Life for the couple was back on track. Soon Isabel became pregnant again, but their happiness did not last long. While playing the piano, Isabel realized that she had gone into premature labor again. Tom was very frightened and did not know how to help his wife.
Tell me what to do. What can I do?
There were now 2 small graves on the island. Isabel was finally sinking into a depression. One day Tom noticed a boat in the ocean. Looking through binoculars, he realized there was someone there. The couple rushed ashore. There was a man lying in the boat with no signs of life and a little girl. Isabel took the child into the house, washed and changed her clothes. She immediately felt affection for the baby. When Isabel realized that Tom was going to report what had happened to the police, she asked him not to. In her opinion, it was better for the girl to stay here. Tom decided to report it in the morning, but made no note of it in the journal. It was as if nothing had happened on April 27th. At home, he saw his wife asleep with the baby in her arms. The next day Isabel tried to talk him out of telling the police. The whole family thinks she is pregnant, so no one will be surprised to see the baby. And the man can be buried right on the island and not tell anyone about it. Tom does not like the idea, but Isabel assures him that there is nothing wrong with it. They have always dreamed of having a child, so fate itself has sent them this little girl. Tom thinks they can adopt the baby girl after they report the incident, but Isabel is convinced that the authorities will not give them a child on an island where there is no hospital or school. If the police take the girl away, she will end up in an orphanage. Tom gave in to his wife's entreaties. They are sure that they will be good parents for this child. The man was buried. Tom also destroyed the journal entries that said Isabel had gone into premature labor. Before letting the boat back into the ocean, Tom found a rattle in it and took it for himself. The second cross had to be removed from the grave. When Ralph and Bluey arrived, they congratulated the couple on the addition. The girl was named Lucy. Bluey noticed the unusual rattle. Isabel became a celebrity in her town because she gave birth on the lighthouse without any help. Tom and Isabel felt like happy parents. They were delighted with their new daughter. The couple raised her in love and care, spoiling her in every way. Soon Tom and Isabel visited her parents. The family was happy, for the little girl looked like an angel. Lucy was to be baptized today. The priest was away for a long time. There is the cemetery next to the church. A woman singing a lullaby over 2 graves caught Tom's attention. When she left, Tom saw the names of Frank and Grace Ronfelt, who died at sea, on the tombstone. Tom realized the horror of the situation and could not hold back the tears. As the priest baptized Lucy, Tom could not get over the shock. William later told that a woman named Hannah lived nearby who, against the wishes of her wealthy father, had married a German man named Frank. One night their family was attacked because of his German background. Frank took their young daughter Grace and threw himself into a boat, which was swept out to sea by the current. The father and daughter went missing and are listed as dead. Tom couldn't stop thinking about it. The next morning he and his family headed back to the island. Meanwhile, Hannah Ronfelt was crying in the cemetery, and then she found a letter in a mailbox. It said that Frank had rested in peace, and Grace was with a loving family. Tom hoped the letter would bring comfort to Hannah. She went to the police, but the sergeant said there were no leads, so it was unlikely that Grace would be found. Hannah's father also understood that the police were not to be relied upon, so he offered a reward for any information on Grace's whereabouts. Hannah recalls the first time she met Frank. Many people are not happy about the German working as a baker, because their country was at war with Germany. Hannah fell in love with Frank and wanted to marry him, but her father was adamantly opposed. In spite of everything, Hannah chose her beloved over her father's money. Soon she became pregnant, and then they had a daughter, Grace. Several years have passed. Lucy is all grown up and the family still lives happily on the island. For Isabel and Tom, Lucy has become the meaning of life. Soon Tom received a letter. The Lighthouse 40th anniversary celebration is being prepared, and the presence of Tom and his family is mandatory. Everyone welcomed Mr. Potts, as well as his daughters Hannah and Gwen. It was thanks to Mr. Potts' charity that the lighthouse was built. Tom was invited on stage to talk about his life in the lighthouse. Tom couldn't get his thoughts together. He spoke softly and kept looking at Hannah. Tears welled up in his eyes. Later, as guests enjoyed the festivities, Isabel met Gwen and Hannah. The woman couldn't stop looking at little Lucy, seeing her as her lost daughter. Hannah asked Tom how likely it was that people at sea would be rescued by ships and taken to the other side of the world. Tom only replied that anything can happen in the ocean. Later, Gwen told the couple about the tragedy that had occurred in her sister's life. Isabel realized that Lucy was Hannah's daughter. She felt sick and ran to the restroom. Thinking that Isabel was not herself because of the long isolation, William decided it was better for his daughter and granddaughter to stay here for a while. Tom had a heart-to-heart talk with his wife. He thinks they should tell Hannah the truth, for they had broken her life. Isabel is of a different opinion. She is convinced that it is too late to change anything. To Lucy she is the mother, not Hannah. Now they have to think about their family. At night Hannah couldn't sleep. When she heard a noise outside, she went outside to check and found something wrapped in paper in the mailbox. It turned out to be Grace's rattle. The Sherburne family went to the island in their entirety after all. Meanwhile, Hannah took the rattle to the police, saying that her father had once given the toy to his granddaughter. The police launched an investigation and announced a reward for any information about the object. Bluey immediately recognized the rattle in the photo. Tom told the wife that a boat is headed their way. He intends to take all the blame and tell the police that he caused his wife to lie. Tom can no longer keep silent. Isabel became hysterical. She cannot allow Lucy to be taken away, but the husband has already made up his mind. The sergeant arrived on the island and said the rattle had been planted in Hannah's mailbox. It was probably the same person who had sent her the letter 3 years before. Isabel was surprised because she didn't know anything about the letter. While Tom talked to the sergeant, Isabel spent time with her daughter. She couldn't believe that soon she would be taken from them. Tom showed where he buried Frank. The family was transported to town. Tom was arrested. As he was taken to the police car, he looked sadly at his wife and daughter. The sergeant said that the girl would be examined by doctors and then handed over to her real mother. Isabel cried and begged the police not to take the baby away. When they took Lucy away from her, Isabel became hysterical and screamed for a long time. Tom is brought in for questioning. The sergeant does not believe that Frank was alive when he got to the island. Besides, Tom had fought with the Germans. The death of one more of them would not have changed anything. Tom asks the sergeant to ask the wife about it. She will confirm his testimony. The sergeant did just that. The law recognizes that a wife can be helpless in the hands of her husband, so Isabel would not be punished for Tom's crime. When the sergeant asked if Frank was alive when they found him, Isabel didn't answer for a long time. Lucy, that is Grace, now lives with Hannah. The girl cried and begged to be let go to her real mother, not seeing Hannah as her parent. Isabel fell into a deep depression. She told her mother that she would never forgive Tom for what he had done. Ralph doesn't think Tom should take all the blame, but Tom doesn't want Isabel to continue to suffer. In his opinion, this is punishment for the wrong decision he once made. Soon Isabel received a letter from Tom and put it away in a drawer. One day she walked into the store and saw Lucy with Hannah. The girl immediately rushed to her arms and called her mom. Lucy wants Hannah to leave and she not be called Grace anymore. Barely able to hold back her tears, Hannah asked Isabel to give the daughter to her. Isabel didn't want to do that, but she had no choice. Hannah visits Tom in prison and asks him directly why he did what he did. Tom is very sorry for what he has done and realizes that he is not worthy of forgiveness. He only asked Hannah to be merciful to Isabel, because she was only obeying her husband's will. One day Hannah found the daughter nowhere to be found. In a panic, she rushed outside to look for her. The police suspected that Grace was in the Graysmark home, but it turned out the girl wasn't there. Isabel had nothing to do with her disappearance either. The police and all the volunteers in town had been looking for Grace all night. Tom knew what had happened, but while he was behind bars, he was powerless to do anything. A girl's toy is found on the shore. Hannah prays and asks God to save her daughter again. The sergeant found Grace asleep ashore and handed her over to Hannah. It turned out that the girl had run away because she was looking for the lighthouse. Hannah remembers her beloved husband telling fairy tales to their newborn daughter. Frank had been through a lot in his life, but in spite of it all, he remained a compassionate and kind man. Frank always said that hatred was the greatest enemy of humanity. One must be able to forgive. The mother asks her daughter to forgive Tom and help him before it is too late. He is a man of conscience and wanted to do the right thing. Isabel didn't expect to see Hannah on her doorstep. The woman admitted that she couldn't live without the daughter, but last night made her realize that Grace would never come back to her. Grace loves Isabel. She is a mother to her now. Hannah promised that as soon as Tom went to prison, she would hand the girl over to Isabel. This means that Isabel must testify against her husband. The sergeant informed Tom that his wife confirmed that Frank was alive when they found him. Now Tom would be tried for a grave crime. Isabel read her husband's last letter. He wrote that he did not regret his decision because he could not live in discord with his conscience. He loves Isabel very much and does not blame her for anything. Isabel realized that she could not live without her beloved husband. When she learned that he was being taken to court, she rushed ashore, hoping to make it in time. She told the sergeant the truth. The sergeant in turn told Hannah everything. Now Tom and Isabel were both going to jail. Surprisingly, Hannah was ready to forgive them, for that was what the husband had once taught her. Mr. Potts spends time with his granddaughter, to whom he is very fond. Hannah is also very fond of her daughter and only wants her to be happy. Events then take us to August 1950. Isabel is gravely ill and hopes that God has forgiven her before she is gone. Tom was left alone. One day a girl paid him a visit. Tom did not immediately realize that it was Lucy. She didn't come alone, but with her young son Christopher. Lucy wished she had never spoken to Isabel. She wanted to thank them both for saving her once. Tom gave Lucy a farewell letter from Isabel. It was hard for her to be away from the daughter, but she did not seek her out, deciding it was best for everyone. For Isabel, Lucy had become the meaning of life. Tom took Christopher in his arms. Before she left, Lucy promised her second father that she and Christopher would visit him often. Now Tom feels peace of mind again. Please subscribe to the channel.